Hi people, you're welcome back to my YouTube channel. We'll be learning how to make this floor length fitted Bubu dress. It has a zip at the back, and it's a very simple and easy tutorial. Trust me, it's beginner friendly. Just follow up, okay? I'll be explaining in details how to fold the material, how to mark the measurements, and also it's very beginner friendly. So let's get started. Now you need about 5 yards of fabric to make this, but two different patterns of fabric. One is pattern and the other one is plain. Okay, so this is my fabric here. So this is a pattern part of my fabric. It has two different patterns, and Ankara fabric is by 45. So yeah, this is a plain part of the fabric. So I'll be folding my fabric into two this way. You see the way I folded it so that I can achieve my desired length, since it's a floor length. So you can't fold it grain-wise. So this is my fabric here. Okay, so I would first of all draw my shoulder line, and I think I have to adjust the position of my fabric so that we can see clearly. Okay, so I would adjust this later. So I'm just drawing my shoulder line. I'm dropping directly on the fabric. This is my shoulder line, and if you notice, I left some allowance at the top part so that when we want to add our seam allowance, we'll have space for that. So after marking the shoulder line, from that line I would mark my chest line. Okay, yeah, so I've adjusted my fabric now. So this is my shoulder line. Now next is to mark my chest line. Shoulder to chest line is half of your armhole circumference measurement. So I'm doing 9. If my armhole circumference is 18, half of that will give me 9. So that's 9. So I'm just going to rule my chest line. Then this is my chest line now. Okay, all right. Now on the I'm going to mark my waistline now. From the shoulder line I'm using 17 inches, so I'm marking my waistline. Yeah, the lines might not be very visible because I'm drafting directly on my fabric, so I'll just try and make it as visible as possible. Then next is to mark my hip depth, which is shoulder to the hip line. Okay, so shoulder to hip line on the average for most people is 24 inches. So this is 24 inch here. Then I have my shoulder to the length of the dress, which is floor length. So my floor length measurement is 58. Then I'll just add extra 2 inches for hemming allowance. So I'll just mark 16. So this is the hemline for me. Okay, so I'm going back to my shoulder line now. I'm going to mark half of my across back or shoulder measurement. Okay, don't worry, when I finish cutting out the dress pattern I'll say explain all over again. Okay, so I'm marking half of my across back on the shoulder and on the chest line. Okay, half of the across back on the shoulder and chest line, then I'll link it together like so. Okay, then next is my neckline. So I'll be doing 4.5 inch for my neck width and 4 inch for my neck depth. Okay, so for this neckline you can actually do what you want. You don't have to do exactly what I'm doing. Okay, so I'll use my French curve to draw the neckline. Okay, so I'm just drawing on my neckline like so. And then now on the chest line, okay, I'll come down by 1 inch from the shoulder and draw my shoulder slants there. Okay, then I'll draw my armhole now, the curve of my armhole. Okay, so I'm placing the curve on my chest line and I'll just draw like that. So you can see that the armhole ends on the chest line there. Now I'm going to mark quarter of my bust on the chest line. So like I said, for those of us that might be confused because of the pattern of the fabric and the chalk is not showing, I'll see explain again after cutting. So I'm marking quarter of my bust circumference here on the chest line plus 1 inch for side seam allowance. So just hold on till later. We'll have a clearer picture of what I've just drafted. Then on the waistline, I'll draw quarter of my waist plus 1 inch for side seam allowance. I'm not adding any dart to the waist. It's a Bubu dress, so I'm not adding any dart to it, okay? Then on the hip line, okay, now I want to link my chest to my waistline. Now I'm doing this because the fabric is quite long, so I want us to see everything, every step of the way. So I've linked the chest and the waistline together, okay? Now coming to the hip line, I would mark quarter of my hip circumference plus 1 inch for side seam allowance. Okay, so same thing, I'm going to link my waist to my hip like that. After cutting out, we're going to see it very well, okay? Then I'll go straight to the hemline of the dress. Now on the hemline, because the dress is slightly A, I'll be marking quarter of my hip first, quarter of my hip circumference first. Then I'll add extra 4 inches to that to give me an A-line effect. And then 1 inch for side seam allowance. Okay, so using my long ruler now, I'm going to connect the hip line to the hemline. Okay, so like I said earlier on, for those of us that may not be seeing the marking of the chalk, after I cut out the dress, okay, I'm still going to explain the measurement all over again. So I think that way we will see what I've cut out. Okay, so I'm linking the hip to the hemline now, like that. Okay, so I'm just trying to make the chalk as visible as possible. So now I'm going to pull my fabric down, okay, and then we're going to cut, and then we're going to be adding seam allowance to the neckline, the shoulder slants, and the armhole. So I'm just cutting out. By the time I cut out now, you guys are going to see what I've done. Okay, so you won't be confused. So I'll just do like a recap of what I said previously. Okay, so this is what it looks like. You see that? So like I said, on the shoulder line, I marked half of my, on the chest line, sorry, half of your quarter of your bust plus 1 inch for side seam allowance. On the waistline, quarter of waist plus 1 inch for side seam allowance. On the hip line, quarter of hip plus 1 inch for side seam allowance. On the hemline, quarter of hip plus 4 plus 1 inch for side seam allowance. So that's what I did, basically. Nothing serious. Okay, so now we're going to be cutting the back. So I'm just checking my measurements again. So shoulder to hip line is 24 inches on the average. Okay, yeah, and then the length of the dress. So to cut the back, I'll fold my fabric into 2, and I'll add 1 inch for zipper allowance. That's because, you know, the waistline is fitted, so you have to add a zipper to be able to wear the dress. Okay, so I've added my 1 inch for zipper allowance, and I'll just place the front pattern on the back, okay, to cut out, basically. So I will get my front piece now. So the only difference between the front and back is number 1, the zipper, and secondly, I'm going to make the neckline of the back to be higher than the front. Okay, so I've placed my fabric. This is the front, on the back with my zipper allowance already added. So I'll just cut out. The only difference is that the back neckline is going to be higher. Okay, so I'm going to cut out now. So you can see the way I raise the back neckline. So I'll just cut out, and then yeah, there we go. So it's a very simple tutorial. So I'm done cutting. Okay, so Now we're going to be cutting the facing, which I've already cut. I'll just explain to you. So for the facing, your facing is like you're cutting the same back. The only thing is that it's a shorter version of the dress. That's all. You can see that it's the same thing, just shorter. So I have two facing for the back piece. Then for the front piece, the facing has to be on fold too. Okay. So this is, you can see that the facing is the same thing with the dress, it's just shorter, some inches below the armhole. Okay, so we'll dive straight into the sewing tutorial. I'll be joining the front and back together at the shoulder. Okay, here. So shoulder to shoulder, front and back, we'll be joining it together. And then I would also do the same thing for my facing. So this is my back piece, one shoulder, my second back piece, the other shoulder. I'll sew it together, and then I'll get my facing. I'll also be joining the facing together at the shoulder. Okay, so let me go ahead and do that. Okay, so once I do that, I'll give my shoulder a very good press, and here we are. So I've joined it together at the shoulder here. All I'll do now is I'll place my facing on top of the dress, and I'll go ahead to turn the neckline, okay, with 1/2 inch seam allowance. Then when I'm done turning the neckline, okay, I would also turn the side seam of my dress. Yeah, this is the side seam. I'll turn with 1 inch side seam allowance. Same thing for the other side of the dress. Side seam allowance is 1 inch, so I'll just go ahead and do that. Okay, so this is my dress. I've turned the shoulder, I've done the side seam. We can see that. Okay, so the next step will be to fix the sleeve. For the sleeve, I have done a tutorial on how to draft a basic sleeve. I'll drop that in the description box. You can watch how to do that. So this is my sleeve, and I'll be adding my sleeve to the armhole of the dress here. So I'll attach my sleeve, you know, to both sides. Then I would also sew the center back of the dress. Okay, I will fold the dress together like so, pin it. Then your zipper should get to at least the hip line, so that you don't struggle to wear it. Okay, so here it is. So I'll just leave space for my zipper. I'll sew from this point all the way down to the hemline, and I'll also do a roll them here, and I will fix my zipper. Okay, so let's do that. All right guys, so this is the final outcome of the dress. I fixed my zipper here. I sew the center back line seam rather, and then I've done a rolled hem. It's so beautiful. So I will place it on my mannequin now for us to see the outcome and how it looks like. So yeah, so this is the dress here. It's so lovely, and I love the fact that, you know, the dress has 2 different patterns. It makes it very unusual, not a regular type of Bubu. Okay, so this is the back view. I hope we learned 1 or 2 things from this tutorial. So kindly give this video a thumbs up. Do not forget to subscribe, share, like, and enjoy your day. Thank you so much for watching.